Good morning, everyone. Sorry, I'm a couple minutes late. I was quickly finishing up a sales page for a client, which seems appropriate given that today we're talking about what the web. Good morning. It's Technophobe No More Day 5, and the topic today is what the web. Today I will be chatting to you a little bit about websites, which is my happy place, surprisingly enough. I will be discussing some of the technology that's out there, as well as a few things to keep in mind when you are building a website. Over this week, we've covered everything email. We talked on Tuesday about everything to do with money with Adrian, our Chief Financial Officer at WAM Workspace. Wednesday, we chatted about chit-chat and chat apps, as well as social media and general sort of communication with clients and that sort of stuff. Yesterday, we covered Tick Done and task managers. So today we're going to talk about websites because now, particularly after 2020 and so many businesses moving into the online space, we are seeing more and more people that are building websites, needing to keep websites updated and those sorts of things. So I'm going to have a quick chat through all of the different options that are available as far as building websites and what the pros and cons are of the various platforms so that you can see sort of help to make an informed decision, but also help you learn what areas to specialize in if you are wanting to go into the virtual assistant space and into this sort of technology side of stuff, just to kind of have an idea of the apps that are out there and where there could be opportunity for you to get work and get paid. So let's pop into website platforms. So the one that the majority of people are aware of is WordPress. It's a very well-known, long-standing platform. There were platforms that came before it. But right now, I think the statistics out there suggest that more than 85% of websites are built on the internet are built on the WordPress platform. So it's very widely used. There are two options for WordPress. So WordPress.com is their hosting platform. And so if you can get a free WordPress website on WordPress.com, but it will have your site name .wordpress.com as the website. And I think it's sort of something to keep in mind when it comes to websites in general, not just about building websites and those sorts of things, is understanding a little bit about how domains work. So domain, your URL is the information that is in the search bar when you search in a browser. The very last part, the in South Africa, .co.za, tells us it's a company in South Africa. ZA is the two-letter code for South Africa as a country. .com tells you that it's a company and it is global or international. .ca, for example, is Canada. .nz for New Zealand. .au for Australia, and those sorts of things. But that last part, you generally don't have a huge amount of control over. There are certain ones that are available. What's really interesting is countries like, I'm trying to remember who it is .it, are selling their country domains to businesses. So you can imagine if you run a tech company, it might be quite nice to have .it. And so that country is selling those. And now we're starting to see more and more options come up as the TLD, which is that last part. And you can now get things like .church, .me. .me is actually another country that's sold their domains as well. The travel agents in the group will have to remember which country ME is. But so there are loads of options that are out there. but you kind of can't really control what options are available. You can look through what's out there, but you can't decide necessarily. It all depends on what's available. Obviously, .com is the most coveted. If you are a business that works locally, your local country code would be the best option. So .co.za for South Africans, because it's recognizable. And what you also need to think about is, what are people most likely to just type in? So if you give someone your website, are they likely to type it into the search bar? And if they do that, what are they most likely to type at the end? So it's important to kind of keep that in mind as well when you're choosing a domain. So the part immediately before the dot, so before the TLD, is the domain name. And that is the site that is getting the traffic. So for example, in AirMeet, you'll see it says airmeet.com/event/ blah, blah, blah. So we are sending traffic to the AirMeet website, and it's a global company, so it's at .com. This is an important thing to look at if you ever click links in emails, or you're unsure of if something is a legitimate website or not, is to always look at what comes immediately before the TLD. So you might get an email that looks like it comes from Amazon. You click the link and it's amazon.xyzjfk.com. That's not an Amazon website, because the part immediately before the .com is not Amazon. That is, once you own a domain, you can add anything prior to that domain from your hosting. So for example, with VA Bootcamp, we could have airmeet.vabootcamp.com. We're not sending traffic to AirMeet there, we're sending the traffic to VA Bootcamp. So it's just sort of important to kind of understand how those bits fit together, so that you can understand where kind of the differences between website platforms, because that's one of the bigger differences. So if you have a free WordPress website on wordpress.com, it's going to be your company, your business name or your site name or whatever .wordpress.com. So you're sending all of that traffic to WordPress's website. Once again, if you're getting anything for free, you are the commodity. So they're going to be advertising to you. They're going to be trying to get you to upgrade and pay for hosting and those sorts of things through them. If you get to the point where you are needing anything more on a WordPress website than the absolute free option on WordPress.com, what you then are recommended to do is to move that website to WordPress.org. So WordPress.org is an open source platform that is the WordPress content management system, CMS. So all of these systems that I'm going to talk about today are various types of CMS systems. They manage the content that you want to put out into the world, and they put all the coding in for you. So WordPress.org is open source, which means that it is available to brainy people like my husband to read the code and use the code to create anything they want to. So what that means in this case is that there are loads of plugin developers who have looked at the WordPress code, developed plugins that do other things on WordPress, and there are hundreds of thousands of those. Everything from being able to make it easier to edit, changing the colors, adding features, being able to shop, being able to pay for things. All of that is developed via plugins. So you'll hear a lot of talk about plugins, particularly around the WordPress space, because that is how you get different functionality on a WordPress site. Now, it's important to understand that because the WordPress code is open source, all of the code on the WordPress arena has to be open source. So what you pay when you pay for a plugin license is you are usually paying for access to the developers for support, and you are paying to get regular updates. Because WordPress is open source and there's a lot of changes, It updates very regularly. We update plugins on a weekly basis. WordPress, the core offering, probably updates 3 or 4 times a year. And it's important that you keep your WordPress website up to date. So that is something that you need to keep in mind with owning a WordPress website, is that it does take maintenance. And it's important that you do maintain your website, or you open your website up for security issues. Again, the code is available. So as with anything, there are always people doing nefarious things on the internet. It's kind of started before the rest of the world was actually accessing the internet. So those are just some things to keep in mind with WordPress. You are going to hear a lot of talk about plugins. WordPress.org, because it's open source, you need to self-host it. That doesn't mean that you personally have to actually put it on a computer and do it yourself. It does mean that you are going to need to pay someone for hosting usually. And that is literally where that information that relates to your website lives on the internet. Kind of like, if you can imagine, your sort of address in a city. That's where people go to find you. It's where they send their information to get hold of you. It's where you take photos of yourself and those sorts of things. So your address on the internet is that domain. And that domain points to where that information is stored on the internet on a server. And I'm not going to go too much into depth. I think that's about as deep as I'm going to go with regards to hosting and domains and those sorts of things. But I think it's important to understand how websites sit on the internet so that you can understand the different options that are available for website platforms and where they are good and not so good for you. So like I said, WordPress is the most widely used one. It's the one that I work on a daily basis. And when you talk about WordPress websites, you've got things like the things that you need to know about on WordPress are the 3 main building blocks of a WordPress website, which is your CMS, your content management system, in this case is WordPress, your theme, which is going to decide kind of the overall look and feel of your website. And that's kind of a complicated explanation now, because now you get themes that are page builders, and so just the theme decides how the website works and how it looks and feels on the front end. And then you have your plugins, which give you the various functionality. And there are, like I said, hundreds of thousands of plugins. The most popular ones that you'll hear are things like the various page builder plugins. So these are the plugins that help you to actually build a website without knowing how to code. And all of these options that I'm talking about here are code-free options for websites. There are still people that hard code websites and create them from scratch. I am not one of those people. I can't talk to you about how that works, and I'm not even going to touch on it. But just know that there is a very small portion of people that do still produce websites that are very much based on code. All websites are based on code, but there are people that actually code it from scratch. Most websites nowadays, like I mentioned, use some sort of content management system in order to deliver the site onto the internet. So the most popular page builder plugins that you'll hear about are Beaver Builder, which is what WAM Workspace works in. Elementor is a very popular one that a lot of people have heard of, and a lot of people use. It's very widely used. In South Africa, Divi is still very widely used and is quite a popular builder. There is also WP Bakery, which is a little bit older, but still seems to be used fairly widely in South Africa. And we discovered other countries around the world in the last few weeks. And then the up-and-coming one is Oxygen, which works slightly differently to the others, but these are all plugins that give you control over how to build your website. And they require a little bit of learning. And then Gutenberg is the blocks editor that's built into WordPress and comes standard with WordPress. And that, over the last 18 months, has become very, very powerful. Another one is Cadence. And Cadence is sort of a theme that helps you edit your Gutenberg blocks and makes them look prettier. Again, there are paid and free themes. WordPress has loads of their own themes. You can get a lot of very customized themes. So if you are a yoga instructor, there are themes that you can go and purchase for yoga instructors, and it will style and give you everything that you need, and you just fill in your colors and your information. And those sorts of things. So it all depends on how much you want to learn and how much information you are wanting to take in. So WordPress, as I mentioned, more than 85% of websites on the internet are based on the WordPress platform. But obviously there are other options out there, and I am going to touch on all of those. Wix is a very visual system. Again, if you go with a free account, it's your site domain.wix.com. Wix advertises itself as very easy for DIY. What they do, which can get very expensive, is if you want to add additional functionality, you sort of pay for that module. So you want to have subscribe forms, you need to pay in order to hook up your subscriber forms. If you want to have a membership area, you need to pay a monthly fee in order to have a membership area on your Wix. And what Wix does is charges you on a monthly basis. So it can add up quite quickly. However, initially it can be quite an affordable option. It's fairly easy to use. I've built a couple of websites on Wix. They have improved since I last built a website from scratch on Wix. But again, there's quite a lot of limitations. Also, from a search engine optimization perspective, it just doesn't score as well as WordPress websites in general, although there are ways to improve it, but it does take quite a lot of work. Squarespace is another very easy to use platform. And there are a lot of other websites which are based on the Squarespace platform, sort of website creator tools that are based on Squarespace. So there are photographer-specific sites where you can go and you can pick a theme, and it's basically it's a Squarespace website, but it comes with a pre-built theme on Squarespace. Again, when you're needing to add extra features and those sorts of things, it's usually a paid and it's usually a monthly payment system. So that is how they make their money. Wix and Squarespace, you can't really migrate your websites away from them because the type of code that they use doesn't really work anywhere else. So if you are moving a website from Wix or Squarespace, you are going to have to essentially rebuild the website from scratch. The nice thing with WordPress is if you are wanting to move your WordPress content into a new theme or onto a new domain, it's fairly easy to migrate the information. Because WordPress is so widely used, you get huge numbers of options, and you can migrate your content across between those options fairly easily. I say fairly easily because there are situations where it isn't necessarily always that easy. Shopify is quite a well-known one for building websites where you are actually selling something. As the name indicates, Shopify. It works really well for selling simple products. I believe if you start to get into trying to do subscriptions and those sorts of things in Shopify, it can get quite complicated and it can get quite pricey. One of the key things with Shopify for South Africans that you have to keep in mind is the fact that Shopify charges you to process payments outside of their payment gateway, and their payment gateway does not support South African Rand at this time. So it's important to know that there are additional fees that are going to be charged on top of what you're charging, which can sometimes make it a bit more difficult to use the platform to sell successfully in South Africa, because you're having to cover a lot more costs. So your prices tend to be a little bit higher. But it is just something to keep in mind if you are a product person. It's a very popular platform, particularly internationally. But again, if you aren't able to process your payments in the currency that you want to sell in, it's going to just give you that little bit of an issue for clients in order to sell with you. Kajabi is an all-in-one platform that lets you build websites, control your email marketing, and run online courses all in a single platform. And talking about sort of email marketing, you can now also build landing pages within your almost all of the email marketing platforms. ActiveCampaign, ConvertKit, MailChimp all offer that option of building a landing page, putting your information there. Many of them allow you to actually sell products there as well. Again, it would depend on which tier you are on, what you can actually do on those landing pages and that sort of stuff. But similarly to Kajabi, all of these you pay to have it look like it's your own domain. But again, it's still hosted on their servers, and all of them charge a monthly fee, and you're going to be paying on a monthly basis to have your website there. And it can get very pricey. Kajabi's rates start at $200 a month. So for most South Africans, that's completely out of the question when you can get hosting for a WordPress website and a free email marketing account for under 300 Rand a month. And that's a decent quality one. You can probably get it for even cheaper if you weren't actually doing a lot of traffic on your website and those sorts of things. So I just wanted to mention all of those. They all sort of give you the opportunity, depending on, even in WordPress, but depending on what tools you use, to visually create emails. So websites. And so it's important to sort of understand that these all, they all have different kind of pros and cons. WordPress requires babysitting, but it's probably the most affordable in the long term, particularly if you are planning to sell stuff, or if you're planning to have online courses or anything along those lines. You need to factor in, although WordPress plugins, the premium plugins can get quite expensive, you need to factor in the fact that once you start adding functionality to a lot of the other platforms, you're going to be paying extra charges on a monthly basis. And when you add up those monthly charges, it can really start to become quite expensive compared to a WordPress website. So that's just a little bit of information on websites. I think what's also important to chat about when it comes to websites is understanding that your website should be your home on the internet. It should be where everything comes to from all the other places in this village that is the internet. So you want to be in the same way that we talked about social media and Facebook as a mall, the same way that if you have a shop in a mall, you probably have a warehouse, a home base where everything happens for your business. You don't necessarily run an entire business out of a shop in a mall. Some people might, but you have your stock kept somewhere else, whether it's in your garage at home or at a warehouse. You have a head office, and that head office is where your website is. And it's a good way to think of that. You want everything should ultimately be coming from your home on the internet. And you should be getting people to, as much as possible, interact with your home on the internet. You want to own as much of your content as possible. And so, again, sharing your content, building things on things like Wix or Squarespace and on the free accounts, you need to understand that that content is owned by the platform that you are working on. Even though you're paying them, you're essentially leasing your content from those platforms. Because WordPress is open source, it's open, it's available on the internet. You are in charge of your content and where it goes. And if you want to pull it or move it or any of that information, you have full control over that. So those are just some things to keep in mind about making sure it's exactly the same as owning property. Yeah, it's fine to rent, and it's a good option for particularly when you're starting out. But you don't really have control over where you live when you rent. You can't knock out walls and add another room. You can't really, without jumping through a lot of hoops, you can't fill in the pool or build a new pool or all of those sorts of things, because the home that you're staying in belongs to someone else. It's the same with your website. You want to own your website as much as possible, so that you can make those decisions. You can decide what you invest your money in, how you expand, how you design it, how you what functionality you add. So absolutely, and the user experience should be the same. You want to make sure that it's easy for people to find you at home. So that's just a little bit about websites. I'm not going into design stuff. We're really just talking about the technology behind them. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about was videos. There are numerous ways of, I think video is becoming one of the most important platforms for marketing now. As we mentioned on the social media day, almost all of the platforms are prioritizing video for sharing. So videos get a lot more traction, whether you're on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok. Even Pinterest is prioritizing video in their pins and those sorts of things as well. So there's there are a lot of reasons to make sure that you know the options that are out there for video and how to use it to your advantage. So Loom is probably my absolute favorite tool when it comes to understanding the systems and processes in a business and passing that information on to others. So Loom is a tool. You can have a free account. The paid account just gives you more storage. And Loom lets you record videos and record your screen along with an audio, so that you can, it's really great for demo videos, walkthrough videos, reviewing things with people. So I highly recommend definitely looking into Loom. It's really great. Other options are most browsers have a built-in screen recorder. Some work with audio, some don't. There are loads and loads of other screen recording apps and programs that are out there. So it's worth sort of doing a little bit of investigation. I think the main reason Loom has become kind of so well known is because it's so easy to use. It's literally a case of clicking a button on your screen and clicking record, and then it automatically does everything else for you. So it's a really fantastic tool, and I use it probably on a daily basis. Nvidia is a web-based video editing software. It's quite useful for creating, taking videos and creating it into different formats. You can now also do a lot of video editing within Canva, which is quite exciting. That was a new feature that they added over the last few months. And then I've included YouTube and Vimeo. They're two of the most well-known video hosting platforms. And the reason they're important to know about and to understand is to also kind of get an idea of how they work and what they are. So again, YouTube, free, you're the commodity. They're going to be advertising to you, and they're going to be advertising on your videos. So those are things to keep in mind as well. YouTube is part of the Google suite. It is a video platform. They now offer YouTube Shorts, which are similar to TikTok videos, short little snippets of video. Again, trying to tap into the fact that there is more and more video content out there in the world, and they're starting to lose the traction they used to have of being kind of the exclusive platform for videos. YouTube offers options, so you can have videos that are public, private, and unlisted. So public videos are the ones that we all go onto YouTube and watch and learn things, much like this video when it goes up onto our YouTube channel. Then you have private videos, which are exclusively for people that are logged in and part of the channel. And then you have unlisted videos. So what those are is basically using YouTube to host your videos and display them. And if you send a link directly to someone, they can watch that particular video, but it's not going to be searchable from YouTube's platform. So what that means is you can use YouTube then to save content on the internet for you to be able to deliver elsewhere. Videos tend to be very large files, and if you were starting to upload whole videos onto your website, your web servers would be complaining very quickly. So what most people do is upload their videos to one of the video hosting platforms. YouTube and Vimeo are the two most well-known ones. There are loads of other CDNs that are out there, content delivery networks, CDN. There are loads of other CDNs out there, but a lot of them, the others tend to take a little bit more knowledge, a little bit more figuring things out in order to have them work properly, or they need to kind of tie in with other products. So for example, we use Presto Player on our website, which is a plugin that helps deliver videos better, and that works with the bunny.net CDN and ties in that way. So it's a more affordable hosting, but it has to work with something else. It's quite hard to just go into bunny.net and watch a video. Vimeo has paid accounts. Again, as soon as you're paying someone, you're able to control a little bit more of who can see what and how it looks and those sorts of things. And Vimeo, also similar to YouTube, you can have public videos, you can have private videos, and you can have unlisted videos. Generally, with our clients, we tend to recommend Vimeo unless we're going to do something like Presto Player for them, because Vimeo lets you control a lot more of the video. YouTube has, as they've gotten bigger, has removed a lot of the control from creators. So they want to encourage people to be on YouTube and to watch more YouTube videos. So they have removed a lot more of that control. Because Vimeo is only has paid accounts, they have allowed a lot more control for their clients. So you can control what the play screen looks like, how much information there is, whether people can slow down or speed up the videos, all of that information. So Vimeo is a fantastic platform once you start to produce more videos, or if you are looking to have videos on your website or embed videos, although they're now starting to become more and more competitors in the video hosting space. But YouTube and Vimeo are probably the most widely known and most widely used video hosting platforms. The benefit of these platforms is what they do is transcode the video. So they take it from the video format that you've recorded it in, and they change it into a format that works for the internet. And what that means is that anyone, anywhere, playing your video will get a fairly good version of the video based on where they are and the kind of internet they have. They also save the video on multiple places around the world, which makes it easier for people to access that content. And so that is why it's well worth using a video hosting platform rather than sort of hosting it on your server. Because if you can imagine, if you record a video and you want to put it onto your website, and you're in South Africa, and you host it on your website, and somebody in Alaska now wants to watch your video, it's having to come all the way from your South African server to deliver the video. There's likely to be buffering, there's likely to be a lot of delay and those sorts of things. Whereas if you host with the platforms that are sort of bigger and specialized in video hosting, they actually host that content in multiple places. So the person in Alaska is watching the video from the closest server to them, which means that it just makes it flow a lot easier. So that is it for Technophobe No More, a short and sweet one today. And what we have decided is that for Monday, rather than having just a Q&A session, is that we will be doing a workshop at the same time, 11 o'clock. We will be doing a workshop on niching, and I'll be discussing all the different options of what it means to have a niche and why it's important to understand how niches work and that sort of stuff. So we will see you on Monday. Have an amazing weekend. I hope that you have gained quite a lot of information from our videos. And we also look forward to welcoming you into our VA Bootcamp if you are ready to take the next steps in your business and really find the ways to take your virtual assistant business to the next level. Whether you are new to the virtual assistant space or are just starting out, or you have an established business that you've been running for a while, but you want to get to a higher income level. VA Bootcamp is designed specifically by South African virtual assistants who work internationally for South African virtual assistants. A lot of the information that we're going to share is going to be very specific to South Africans. We will discuss all sorts of things around legalities and financial implications. And it's a lot of hands-on detailed assistance based on what we've learned in the last 4.5 years working with international clients. So if you're interested, sign up at vabootcamp.co.za, and we look forward to welcoming you. Otherwise, have an amazing weekend, and we'll see you on the niching workshop on Monday. And if you're a travel agent or know someone who's a travel agent who may be looking at how their skills might translate into the virtual assistance space, let them know that we are running a travel agent to virtual assistant workshop on Wednesday afternoon next week. Thanks, everyone. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you on Monday.